I returned to my alma mater, the University of Toronto. I had finished my particle generator and was beginning to work on finding another mine to use. And then there was the flaw in my plan. I was dying. The electrical repercussions of the blast had been worse than I had thought, and I had limited time left. I did have a plan. A book I had been reading in my spare time told me about certain species' ability to regenerate when required. If I could figure out a way to make that possible for me, I could survive. However, I would have to move quickly. I began traveling to nearby forests to collect what I could domestically. I visited a nearby bazaar to gather any exports I required. I returned to my office and stocked the shelves with my new specimens. Then I turned to the campus courtyard to find a brain. After much surveilling, I discovered that physics and history majors were the best candidates. I narrowed down the application process to 4 people and had them all summoned to the courtyard, 2 from history and 2 from physics. I gave each one a test, a puzzle of sorts. Something to test whether or not they could perform the tasks required for what I needed. It was nothing like Verity's test, but it was sufficient. I returned to my office and started tinkering with a universal identifier, while I waited for someone to finish the test. I returned to the courtyard and gathered the test from the only one who managed to complete it. As I looked over, everything was perfect. Whoever this man was, he was the best candidate I had ever met. I invited the man, Francis, up to my office for more discussions on what he would assist me with. I did not, however, reveal the end goal for him. Francis and I began to work on the DNA add-on for the regeneration. It seemed to be going quite well, so we tested on a rat. It was a very good result. The rat had regenerated and become more healthy than before. The only thing neither of us could understand was the outside appearance. It had completely changed how it looked, but still remembered exactly how to get through its maze. We began adapting it for humans but ran into an issue. We had to create a regulator to make sure that the genes wouldn't flood my body and force me to regenerate uncontrollably. The regulator would, on the outside, appear as only a wristwatch. We developed the technology and prepared to implement it. Francis prepared the needle and the watch as I sat in the chair, dreaming of the nearby immortality. A quick scan with the sonic told me that what I had completed was not a full regeneration, only enough to keep me alive until my body could support a full one. That meant that there was only one thing left to do. I had to take Francis's brain and install it into a machine. I believed that I could put off killing Francis for at least a little while. Francis and I began assembling the quantum aspect of the machine. This worked by creating small controlled black holes that would distort time. They could also take us at unimaginable speeds to wherever the end hole was, as long as they were calibrated correctly. Everything was perfect. Then Francis had to go and ask a logic-based intelligent question.
How do you plan to control the machine? There is no control surface to date that can handle something like this. Short of organic materials, that is. So you want to use my brain for your machine?
Yes.
And this would grant me the ability to go anywhere I like?
Yes.
And the only downsides are losing my human form, and the risk that it doesn't work?
Yes.
I have to say, engineer, I'm very interested in this.
That's great to hear. I do have one question for you, though.
Of course. Anything.
Why the engineer? I understand that I have not disclosed my real name, but why that?
You're the man that fixes everything. Why not? I think I would rather like to be your time machine, sir.
Wonderful. Tomorrow is the day I kill my best friend. The loss will be unbearable. Sleep is impossible. Work is to be done. I woke Francis and told him to meet me in the lab. I cleaned myself up and prepared for the surgery. It would be one of the most difficult things I had ever done. One slip and it was all for nothing. The surgery had begun. I should explain. Imagine a big thing and a small thing. Imagine the big thing is getting messed with to be smaller. It goes really far away and is projected onto the small thing. And that's how Francis can exist. I knew exactly why I needed to be here. I had to find information about the future and the past. Enough to let Francis know where to go. I gathered information by borrowing books from the library and bringing them back to Francis. Francis not having any type of scanner did pose an issue. I ended up inputting all the information by hand. I finished giving Francis the information, but as per usual, another issue came up. The watch was ticking much faster than usual and a quick scan with the sonic explained exactly why. It was time for me to die. I took Francis to my family estate and said my final goodbye to the lonely house. I took him to Candlekeep's only beach and met my friends. I explained Francis to them and said that I probably had enough time for one trip. They chose to use Francis to assist them on a mission. Apparently there was a warlord about to attack the town, and they wanted to go back in time and stop him. I explained the rules of time travel, and they still wanted to have a go at it. I started up the machine, and we began flying through time. As we went, Groigel asked to travel alongside me full time. I agreed without thinking. I wanted them here, but what about the next engineer, or the next? We arrived in 1543 Wildmount. I bid them both a heartfelt goodbye, and as Groigel walked off, I called Verity back. I gave her 2 programmed antimatter manipulators, one to get into the palace, one to go home. I told her that I couldn't come back from where I was going, not yet anyway. I told her it wasn't goodbye, not forever. I hurried her out of the Francis as the watch began to tick even more aggressively than before. One final trip. I looked out at the marvelous creation. It all looked so beautiful, but I didn't have time. It had already started. Time for the rules, whoever's next. Number 1, don't tell them your name, don't let them get to close. If they get to close, you lose them. Tell them your name is John Doe, or something like that. Number 2, always help them. They will always need it, and you will always be here. Don't forget them. Never forget the ones you couldn't save. Never hurt them. Never kill. Number 3, don't say goodbye. It already hurt to stand over their grave in 100 years. Don't make the pains worse. That's all I have. And it looks like all I'll get.
Wow, love the purple suit.